Yeah. Okay. So Kerry. All right. We should be going live on Facebook in just a second. We're recording on the podcast, and I'm so thrilled to see you on this snowy day, Kerry Walls. We both have. We rarely have snow on the ground here in Rhode Island,
Oh,
and you're in Maine, so you must have snow.
yeah, we do.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so excited that we connected on LinkedIn and that you're willing to share your tips with recent graduates and emerging professionals. Just some tips on, you have a lot of experience working as a business coach. Could you tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about what business coach means as opposed to another type of coach?
Sure. Um, a business coach is really focusing on the business and the different areas of the business. So it might be sales and marketing and financials and staff development. So it's really helping people be both more successful. But I also work on people's fulfillment. A lot of times a business owner starts a business, and as it grows they're successful, but they get less and less fulfilled because maybe they're managing people and they don't like to do that, or they're doing tasks they've done for a long time and they get bored. So I help them uh, get to the next level of the business so they can stay strategic and get more people underneath them to step up and help the business. So
Nice.
yeah.
And what types of businesses do you tend to work with?
It's all across the board, from fabrication to, um, service providers. It just depends. So a lot of the business stuff goes across industries. So
Right, it's sort of agnostic, right? The,
yeah,
the problems are pretty much the same
yeah.
in a lot of different areas. What are some of the common problems that you find?
Lots of times just people problems, like getting along with each other, and communication breakdowns. I work a lot with business partnerships. They start a partnership, but they kind of skip the premarital counseling and they get into it later, and then they realize they're misaligned, or they're having arguments, or they're stressed out, or there's unequal workloads. So helping them get aligned to move the business forward. And I think so much of business focuses on success and the viability of the business. It leaves out people's vitality and their fulfillment. And I feel that both go together. Like I have this one client who has an affiliate website where he makes money through people clicking links, and he does great reviews, and he's an outdoor guy. He just loves the outdoors, and he was finding himself stuck behind a computer all the time and he hated it. So helping him develop other staff to do some of the writing. So now he's in Hawaii with his surfboard and his 1-year-old and his wife, and having a great time. So that's important, just the business by itself. You got to have your fulfillment too.
Yeah, living the dream, as they say.
Yeah, there you go.
Must be nice. Well, we'll all hopefully get there at some point.
Yeah.
What about for somebody who's just graduating or emerging professionals? Are there red flags that they could maybe keep an eye out for, that like maybe this isn't a good fit,
Uh-huh.
either for them personally, or that maybe there might be some issues at the business overall?
Right. I think you want to, I, I personally think everyone has a life mission or a purpose in their life. And we choose different vehicles to express our purpose. So I was a teacher for a while, and then I had my own business, and then I worked at a consultancy. And somebody might look at that like that's all over the map, but there was a thread through it that really relates. Like I always use my teaching background, I use my small business background, I use all those things. But so there's a purpose that you have that brings you joy, that you're thrilled about, that you want to contribute to, and you want to see, does your purpose overlap with the purpose of the company? So you can always ask, what the mission of the company is. And a lot of companies have something framed on the wall in the boardroom that says what their their purpose or the mission is, but is it just framed on a wall and it just sits there, or is it live in the company? So you could ask some questions about, can you give me an example of how that happens day to day? Or, so you can see, is it just talk? Is it like corporate speak, or is it real? Because you want to see, and especially I think now 20 and 30 somethings want, it have meaning what they're doing, which I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that is a huge priority. And I think even more so now that it seems like everyone's time is so restricted with
Yeah.
COVID, and people are, I think it's given a good opportunity for people to evaluate what their priorities actually are.
Because sometimes you have a group interview, like I will be watching, how do the people relate to one another in the group? I think you can tell a lot about, how a company, it's relationship. Do they value people, or is it just like drive, drive, drive? And I think employees they want two things. They want a challenge and to be stimulated and grow. And they also want a way to increase their income over time. And those go together, because if you're challenged and you grow, you contribute more to the company. And then you also should technically, as your contribution expands, you should be making more money. So do they value their employees? Do they value their development? Because otherwise you'll feel stifled there.
Right. Yeah. I think, that's really what it is. Right. And I would say that that's a bigger cost, right? Is this accurate that losing an employee actually costs the company a lot of money? So
Yeah.
to work with a company that wants to reinvest in employees isn't a bad ask. I think that maybe a lot of young emerging professionals might think, oh, if I want to go to grad school, is it a bad thing to ask my employer, hey, would you, reimburse me or compensate me if I do well?
Mhm.
But do you think that that's a good thing to ask about if that's a priority?
I think you should go for what you need and want. And I think it's okay to ask. If it's just a request to get more information, that means a yes or a no is fine. So um, it can't hurt, as long as you're okay if like, no, we don't do that, but
Right.
it's just information.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that there's so much, it's interesting that you talk about group interviews, because I think that that brings on a special form of anxiety. Like
Mhm.
you feel maybe you're sitting in front of a firing squad, and what are they going to ask? And are they going to, in particular, it gets challenging when people talk over each other, or you have more than one person asking questions or bouncing between different topics. I think that can be a challenge, but even that might be a red flag, would you
Mhm.
say?
Yeah, could
Potentially.
be.
Yeah.
You want to get it as specific as possible. So be sure you have your own questions you want to ask that are important to you, and ask those and advocate for yourself, because you're choosing them as much as they're choosing you. And I know you're probably always told that, but it's hard to really be in that space. Like,
Hmm.
okay, where do I want to spend my time?
Hmm.
Um, so it's not about answering it the right way. It's really be yourself and show up as yourself and ask about what's important to you, so they get to know each other. Because to me, it's all about fit. Is this a good fit for is the company a good fit for you, and vice versa? And that's all. It doesn't mean anything about whether you're good or bad, or it's just you're trying to find the right fit for you.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense, because also, it's a huge waste of time, right? If you come in and you oversell or you misrepresent yourself somehow, they're going to find out,
Yeah.
and then it just is going to make your life much more challenging if you feel like you need a specific set of skills, or they're looking for a specific set of skills to be accurate in how you're representing those, but also understand that there's something called the internet out there.
Yeah.
And you can learn a lot from it, whether it's doing some type of certification or a course. ROI and you, we specialize in digital marketing skills. that, you're not getting taught in class because they change so quickly, and the instructors are people who are doing that work every day. So it's all very current, but there's tons of resources out there.
Yeah.
What about some personal development resources? Are there some books that you would recommend that would be good? Because I think another piece of it is not knowing what you want, right? Because you haven't had a whole lot of life
Mhm.
experience. Do you have any resources that you would recommend for a emerging professional to check out?
I like that book. Now I think it's called How to Design Your Life. It's written by
Yes.
a Stanford professor, or they had the most popular course at Stanford. I thought it was pretty good. It'd be good to do something like that in a group to really, design what do you want and think about it that way. Um, that's really helpful. I think a lot of podcasts and just always developing yourself is really important. The skill part, the content of the skills, that's the easy part to learn. Like,
Hmm.
do you get along with others? Do you work well with others? Do you generate? I mean, I'm just thinking of business owners I work with. It's really helpful when people generate ideas or are creative or members of the team, and how can I help? Like, there's more of an attitude, and also you're open to feedback. So like, you're coachable and you'll learn. And if you make a mistake, you're honest about it. All those kind of things are more character qualities, but are critically important. And it's a breath of fresh air for employers to have people like that. And so they'll find a way to hire you,
Right.
demonstrate that.
Yeah. I've heard the phrase hungry and humble, which I think is, I mean, it sums up what you're saying, right? That
Right.
yeah, you're hungry, you want to learn, but you know that you have a lot to learn and that you are going to make mistakes, and are willing to say like, oh, maybe this wasn't very good.
Right.
And I think that applies to at any stage of a career. I just was working on a grant application with a fellow parent from my daughter's school, and we never worked together. We're working on this grant application. She's like, I tried to preserve your voice, and I was like, do what you think is right,
Yeah.
because she has a much more academic background, and grant writing is not really my forte. I'm just doing
Yeah.
it sort of on the side. I'm
Right.
more of the visionary and the ideator, and so I can like get my ideas down, but I always say there's probably holes. So
Yeah.
don't be offended by asking questions, and I'm not going to be offended if you make improvements at all. Like,
Right.
I'm just trying to get it down on paper.
Yeah.
But so I think that those are skills that are lifelong, but I think it may be harder when you're the new kid on the block, literally.
Hmm. Well, when you're the new kid on the block, you always try to show your best stuff and try to be your best. But it's people know that you're learning, and it's more important to really focus on building relationship with others, and rather than proving your value. Like learn about the organization and learn about the people and be curious about how things are working and how you can help. Like, that's the most important.
And I think too that I always value, when I have a new person coming onto the team, fresh eyes are the best thing
Yeah.
ever, right? Like, if
Right.
this, of course, it makes sense to me, right? Because it came from here,
Yeah.
and I have it mapped out. But like I said, there's holes, right? And sometimes even, my intern slash assistant who's been with me for so long, we, think alike now. So
Yeah.
she's no good at the fresh perspective because she can sort of think as if she's in my brain, right?
Right.
So having new members of the team come on and say like, I'm not really sure about this piece. Like, what are you trying to say here? That's hugely valuable,
Yeah.
especially in digital marketing.
Yeah. And smart employers want to sustain your fresh eyes as long as they can, because it's really useful, because there's so much in it they can't necessarily see what they can't see. So,
I was just looking at your tips, and one of the things you talked about was, yeah, build relationships, create trust and respect, care about others and their concerns. and to listen to others way more than you speak. And I think that is very sage advice.
Yeah. Well, so much, very little true listening happens. And so listening is the number one way you build relationship, by really listening to people, being curious, asking questions. And you may not appreciate someone's style. They may be brash or abrupt, but kind of listen past their style and hear and kind of get curious about what are they trying to accomplish? What's their concern? And then often our concerns line up. Like we have similar commitments to either the success of the company or something. But then you can help each other get to where you want to get to.
Yeah. And I think also it's important to recognize that, especially when you're, when you're looking for your first position, you may not be getting maybe everything that you want. You may not be getting the salary that you ultimately want,
Right.
but to look at the value that the experience that you're going to get, and focus a lot on those pieces, like how am I going to learn, and know like, okay, there's a possibility that I might be able to, I might not be here forever, but that's okay. And,
Yeah.
and the employer would know that as well.
Yeah. And you learn as you go along. So no matter where you go or the next job, you still, you're getting developed if you develop yourself, and learn. And that adds value to what you can bring in future jobs or future roles in the same company.
Yeah, definitely. The other tip that you gave us, which is really helpful, is don't focus on changing other people. Focus on learning about yourself so you can be more effective with others. We learn the most if you use our challenges to learn from and improve ourselves.
Right. Like we tend as human beings point fingers about how other people could change, but we don't have any power on other people, and it never works when we try to change others. So you're in a dance with somebody else. If you change your dance step, then they'll have to adjust. So just learn how to be, everyone's different. So what might work maybe in managing one person or working with another person, it changes. So
Yeah.
because different people are motivated by different things. So get to know them and be effective with a wide range of people, because if you really want to grow in your career, probably eventually you'll be managing others, so and the more you can learn, I always say my worst boss taught me how to be a boss, told me what not to do ever to somebody. So you can always learn from people about
Yeah.
what
Oh,
works, what
definitely.
doesn't. So
Yeah. We've all, I think everybody's got a worst boss story, right?
yeah.
But and also, I used to think of that horrible boss and think like, what else is going on in her life that she shows up to work so miserable?
Mm.
And at that time she had two little kids. I think her marriage wasn't going that great.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard. And it was hard because she brought it into work with her. In particular at that time too, I think that was more tolerated, and particularly in journalism, it was very,
Mm.
it's a little bit celebrated as land of the
Oh
misfit
God.
toys.
Great.
Like, we're not gonna be this grouchy, edgy reporter or editor. I mean, that's celebrated in the media even.
Right. Right.
But I think the the biggest way that I learned how to manage people was when I was a senior in college. I was editor of the student newspaper,
Uh-huh.
and I had 40 unpaid. Everybody was unpaid. I was unpaid. They were all unpaid. And getting a weekly product out of 40 unpaid staffers that was good quality. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, we had a graduate assistant and we had an advisor, but the level of commitment that these students actually produced, and a lot of them were working full time. There was a person on our team had a young child, was a young mother. It was, everybody brought a whole suitcase with them
Yeah.
that didn't necessarily fit in the overhead very well,
Right.
but still had to get the paper out on time. And there was, I learned a lot through that experience. And I've also advised some of the editors coming after me that you may actually be a better manager than your boss,
Mm,
because you've had this experience of like how to motivate people and how to get the best work out of them
right,
through the newspaper. And it could be that, the person who's managing you just, they don't have those skills. They haven't had a chance to develop them.
right.
So to kind of approach these situations and difficult people with empathy,
Mhm.
I think is a huge skill. And, even if you have to tell yourself like, well, life must be really difficult for them.
Right. I always hold it that everyone's doing the best they can.
Yeah.
If they knew a better way to do it, they would,
Yeah.
but they're doing the best they can. So if you can, that helps to bring compassion to them.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I'm curious what you're finding, because there's a lot of, obviously in digital marketing, there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of demand, and our agency partners are really looking forward to our students coming through and being ready to go. But I'm just curious what you're seeing with some of your clients in terms of, are they hiring? Are they not hiring? What's the landscape looking like out there from your perspective?
It depends a lot on the industry. Certain industries obviously have been very impacted by COVID. I've had companies lay off half their people and now they're bringing some back, or reconfiguring sometimes, or maybe they need, because then they're a smaller company, they may need somebody like different or not as advanced in a position.
Mhm.
So it's pretty fluid out there, but I think uh, so it really just depends. And I think the more willing people are to, just really serve people and help and have as much compassion with I think everyone's under a lot of stress generally, and it's
Yeah.
been such a long time. It's easy to forget how stressful this is for
Yeah.
all of us. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like that's underneath what we count on isn't all the same. So it's pretty disorienting for a lot of people. I don't know if
Yeah.
that answers your question, but
No, I think it's very valid, because I think, if you don't have a lot of responsibilities and you're not connected with, for example, somebody like me who has, a small child who had to be home 2 days this week,
Mhm.
and it just, if she's home, it's just hugely distracting.
Yeah,
And, it's luckily she's been in school full time since school started, but and safely, because we put in a lot of safety protocols.
yeah,
But yeah, it's just, it sometimes takes me a lot longer than I'd like to get back to emails and
right.
circling back with people. I had a call yesterday with a client, and he was traveling, like he was driving somewhere, and he was like, I'm gonna be on long drives. It's gonna be great to connect during that time. But I'm not sure exactly what time we're going to be able to start. He's like, if you don't hear from me by like 9:15, call me.
Yeah,
That'll help get me on the road, because he's got two small kids at home. And he's like,
right,
oh, I'm so
right.
sorry. And I was like, no, hey, look,
Yeah,
I totally understand.
no,
Everybody has those days when you're trying to get out the door. It's a challenge
yeah,
now. And so just, yeah, approaching everyone again with that compassion piece, I think is really important. And I
yeah.
think it might be frustrating for, if you're filling out a lot of, if you're working on your resume and you're filling out a lot of applications, that, why aren't you hearing back? Already the ghosting thing was a thing before.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's still an issue?
Well, I think to look at not just filling out applications, but I also think the old informational interviews and building your network is critically important always. And we
Mhm.
tend to build our network when we need to. And this is true for business owners too. Like we market when we don't have enough business.
Right.
and so we kind of get in this cycle, but it's really good to always be building your network somehow, because you don't know when
Right.
you need it, and it just helps to be connected with others. So getting curious about other jobs and just seeing if somebody will talk to you about what their job is like, it builds relationship. And I've way back when, I got a job that didn't exist because I was doing that,
Yeah.
that was 30 years ago, but it was in a nonprofit and they had already approved their budget, but she knew I'd be gone if she didn't hire. So she went back to the board, got it approved, and they weren't, it wasn't a position that, so you never know. If you show up well and you're curious, people will be impressed and you'll find something. So it helps you, that it's hard just to keep doing resumes and all that, but try to vary what you're doing and vary your approach and get to know other people, because it's an isolating experience applying for jobs. So the more you connect with others, you'll feel less isolated. Sometimes you'll get an idea just talking to someone that you hadn't thought of. I remember somebody telling me, "Oh, you're looking for a marketing a cause job." And I didn't realize I was looking for that, but they said it. And it's like, oh yeah, that's true.
How would you describe that, marketing a cause?
Well, like I at the time, this was a long time ago, but marketing something you believe in, selling something you believe in.
Yeah.
So
nice. And which nonprofit was it?
It was in Portland, Oregon. It was the Dougie Center for Grieving Children.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds very powerful.
Yeah.
Important work for sure.
Yeah.
Nice. And what did you end up convincing them to hire you to do?
Now I have to think back. I was helping them. They had a grant to publish books on helping children cope with death.
Oh, right.
And they were supposed to do 12 in 3 years, and they had one.
Oh, wow.
And it was like 2.5 years in. So I helped them publish it. I walked around with a whip, helped them do it and get it out the door, and also helped them market those books, get them into different distributors and in sales. And
that's awesome. That's really important. I think that those are books that should be in every library, because certainly, I imagine they're getting checked out more often, unfortunately.
Right. Well, they were one of the original grieving children centers, and they helped start. Now there are a lot of them in a lot of cities, but they trained others what they learned. So
yeah, the whole mental health piece, I think, if there's a silver lining to COVID, I think, is making people aware of, even if you don't have a mental health issue, I think everybody kind of has a mental health issue now, and it ebbs and flows. It's sort of, it's like COVID affective disorder, right? It's like seasonal affective disorder, but you just never know. Like Wednesday, when this whole thing about, when my daughter being home, or Tuesday night, I was like, I just felt totally deflated. Like, there goes my week.
Yeah.
And, I was like, okay, I'm putting my feet up, making an easy dinner, and we're just going to go to bed early. And I slept a lot, and I felt better. I felt much better about it the next day.
Yeah. I think we all have bad COVID days.
Yeah.
It's just easy. I've always considered myself very resilient, but resiliency can be overrated sometimes. Like sometimes you just don't have it.
Yeah.
You don't need to just kind of be productive.
Right.
Keep going. Sometimes it's just like accepting what is, and
it's very true. And if you read any like the habit forming books and the Charles Duhigg and all that, resiliency and like fortitude basically it's not a bottomless pit. You know what I mean? Like there's so this is where they get into the whole philosophy of like having your meals planned, and like if you can eliminate as many routine questions on a day-to-day basis, it's going to actually conserve your energy to focus on other things.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular habits that you would advise, or that that you would advise an emerging professional or recent grad to start getting into?
Habits. I think follow what you're passionate about, and be learning, but through podcasts and other things that are easy to do, like you're taking a walk and you listen to something, just stimulate yourself, but find the things that you're really interested in. You know, right now I'm doing a lot of travel planning. Who knows when I can do it, but I'm interested in it. So it brings me joy. So but do things like don't learn for the sake of learning because you think it's something you should do, but follow the thread of what intrigues you,
Mhm.
fulfills you, and learn about that.
I think that's also really good advice because it's going to help answer the question of what do I really want to do,
Mm-hmm.
which I think
Yeah.
is something that every young person has, almost everyone. I mean, I knew I wanted to be a journalist, but did I want to go broadcast? Did I want to do, newspaper? And how did I want to do that? And I think now there's such a wealth of information out there that would help you maybe figure that out
Right.
um, earlier, instead of like, oh, I took this job and now I hate it.
Right. But even that's good data. What do you hate about it? And why do you hate it?
Hmm.
And then I always think of it like follow the breadcrumbs of what brings you joy or what you're passionate about. And sometimes you'll just see the next thing and just try that and just keep kind of have an observer self on board to see what it is that you like about something or what you don't like about it. Because that's
Hmm.
really good data
Yeah.
for you. Like you
Yeah.
like working on a team, or you like working individually, or you like your autonomy. There's lots of different things
Yeah.
that are just for you individually about where do you work the best and what is fulfilling for you.
I read something really interesting that in particular has been helpful for me because I'm the board president and co-founder of my daughter's school. And one piece of advice I read somewhere, picked up somewhere, was to basically write instructions for how other people should work with you. And
Huh.
I thought it was really interesting and I used it just personally, but I found that I rely on it when we have conversations about, a lot of it has to do with expectations, right?
Mhm.
And so what I'm able to do is say, look, I worked in daily newspapers for 15 years and the work has to get done because the paper has to go out.
Right.
So like this whole concept of like, well, let's just think about it, let's sleep on it, like it's not really in my DNA anymore. And
Right.
so I tend to, okay, which direction are we going in? We are going in that direction and we are completing the task as quickly as possible. And it doesn't have to be perfect because
Right.
we have limited resources, but like coming back and coming back and coming back to things. So I think, setting some goals, and then figuring out like what are the incremental steps. And it's interesting because I'm doing, in like an hour, I'm doing a podcast with our Newport Interactive Marketing speaker for the month, and
Uh-huh.
it's all about sales. And that's a whole focus of sales. And I would think, if anybody's listening to this and they want more information on how to structure the job seeking process, that you could use sales strategies
It's
to figure
exactly
that
the
out.
same. Yeah. It's really some of the same practices and the same, because I help people a lot with sales and learning to do it authentically in a relationship sort of, service orientation. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's being consistent. It's having regular conversations, taking regular action, not giving up. No just means no for now. It's building relationship with people, you making requests, all those sales things. It's like a funnel. It's a sales funnel, like how many possibilities for jobs and making them move down or out of the funnel.
Hmm.
And you always want to, it's really easy when you're looking for a job. If you think something's going to happen, you kind of stop all the other activity, but that's the worst thing to do. You want to just keep going because, if you have 5 possibilities, you're going to do better in the interview than if everything's on the line. You'll
Mm-hmm.
just be more stressed that way. So take the pressure off yourself and keep going so you don't get, I always say there's a big rock in your funnel and it clogs up your funnel. So you need to keep moving
Right.
it down or out, and not
Yeah.
be waiting for people, because waiting for others kind of makes us nuts. So as much as possible, what action, if you get an action, action's the source of results. So if you get an action, it'll start to move again and you'll
Right.
find
And
something else.
yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. And I think too that to have a bunch of opportunities it's going to help you make a better decision, right? Than
Yeah.
like, this is my best shot. This is what I got to do.
Right.
But then also, as you're saying, waiting for the people. If your employer or potential employer knows that you have like 3 other offers that are about to come in,
Yeah.
they're going to start moving pretty quickly
Right.
or not. And then, like, I think so much of this is how I feel about real estate, right? So much of it is just like research and karma, right? And how
Uh-huh.
those two things dovetail into each other. Like it's sort of like you make your own luck. But
Right.
that by doing consistently, like you said, the specific things that eventually there's kind of, you knock on enough doors, one of them is going to open.
Right. And have a target, like just like you would in sales. Like, I'm going to have a job by this date at this time, and write out what kind of job it is or what it will look like or the qualities it has. And you don't know that that will happen, but it just puts you in a frame of playing a game, and you'll get farther just having a target and holding that intention. And
Yeah.
when you have that intention, stuff comes from left field. If you're consistently in action, something else will happen that you didn't anticipate.
Right. Right. Yeah. So much. Whew, I feel like we just packed an hour worth of amazing insights into a very short time. But any other quick takeaways?
Um, just don't, as you're looking for a job, don't judge yourself. So that's really important. Just keep in action, and don't get discouraged,
Yeah.
just keep going. So
One thing I say to other small business owners is don't be the worst boss you've ever had to yourself.
yeah.
Like, if you treat other people that way, like
Yeah.
if you had somebody working for you, you wouldn't treat a dog walker that way. Like, why are you treating yourself that way?
Right.
Yeah. It's just so easy to put so much pressure on yourself.
Well, and maybe chunk down, instead of like a job by a certain time, go backwards and say, okay, certain number of interviews, or I'll find a certain number of openings, or like, so get before the job. But if you do that, you'll get there.
Yeah.
But have some target you're engaged in. It will help.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, this has been super amazingly fantastic. And so, Kerry, we can find you on your website, which is Coaching Collaborative.
Yeah. Coachingcollaborative.com.
Nice. Oh, that's really awesome URL. That's fantastic. Okay. Well, we will get our live stream off.